The Protyre Motorsport Ginetta GT Championship makes its first of two visits this season to the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit here in the East Midlands. It is a bright, relatively sunny day. At least the track is dry though, which is a definite improvement upon the conditions that we had last time out at Silverstone a number of weeks ago. But now we're here at a former Grand Prix venue at Donington Park with much different conditions, a very different challenge for the drivers, but three exciting races ahead, hopefully, as we move now into the middle chunk of the championship. We've had 5 of the 21 races so far, so it is definitely time that some of the drivers will start to be looking at those championship points and building their championship challenge. Nick White, the AM driver, has qualified on pole position for this race here today alongside top pro Mckenzie Douglass. Matt Shaw, another AM star, starts on row number 2 alongside Luke Garlick, with Luke's brother Conner starting from 5th and Ben McKenna coming from the 3rd row with him. And it's Jack Manchester making his debut, former Radical and European Le Mans Series racer. He's got Harry Mangan for company on row number 4. 5th row of the grid, completing the top 10, is Peter Mangan and Gracie Mitchell, another debutante, completing the top 10, with Callum Noble also making his first appearance of the season, bringing up the rear. Like I said, 5 races down, the AM drivers to the fore. There were a few who were tipping Nick White and Matt Shaw to do pretty well this weekend, maybe challenging for podium finishes, but who knows, we could have an overall AM class winner, which I'm pretty certain has never happened before in the Ginetta GT Championship. We've seen it in the GT Academy Championship, from where both of those drivers have graduated this year, but never before, to my knowledge, in the sort of top level, really, of Ginetta one-mate racing here in the GT Championship itself. So this could be a historic day if either of those two drivers can make their way to the front come the end of the race. In the championship, Mckenzie Douglass leads in the pro class by just 2 points over Luke Garlick, who is a further 3 ahead of his brother Conner. So 5 points covering those 3 at the top of the pro championship table. In the AM class, Nick White does have a 74-point lead over Matt Shaw, but that is before drop scores are being calculated, because we're a bit too early in the season to be worrying about that. So that will tighten up a bit, depending on what happens this weekend anyway, once those drop scores are applied. Rolling start, as always these days, for the Ginetta GT Championship. They make their way around Goddard's then with the number 57 car of Nick White. The pressure on his shoulders. Can he win as an AM class driver? It is time to find out. 20 minutes on the clock. Across the line they go. The lights are out. We're away and racing at Donington Park, and already an aggressive move made by Ben McKenna, number 27, to get to that inside line. Nick White looking to try and hold the lead. There is bodywork flying up the inside. Goes one of the Garlicks, to the outside goes the other, and it's Matt Shaw getting sandwiched in between. Matt Shaw is dropping like a stone already, but the rest of them making their way down through Hollywood and into the Craner Curves, where the lead is now held by Mckenzie Douglass. Douglass gets past Nick White, a little bit more confidence maybe on cold tyres for the pro driver, and he breaks through into the lead of the race. So Douglass leads, White second, Luke Garlick, that is, into 3rd position, gaining 1 spot at the expense of Matt Shaw. And Conner Garlick, his brother, I think is in behind him, although for how much longer, because Ben McKenna launches up the inside of Conner. They almost lean on each other through McLean. This is Harry Mangan's view from 6th position, and Harry with a grandstand view of McKenna slipping on the inside at Coppice, and that opens the door for Harry as well, who might try and get 2 for the price of 1. He's certainly going to move into 5th position, but is he going to be able to steal 4th? I don't think he will. And actually, 5th is not yet a certainty, is it? Because Conner Garlick still has the inside line into the chicane and through the fog. Yes, as he goes through, that tyre stack comes up very quickly, and he did a good job to avoid it. The tyres are there to deter drivers from exceeding track limits, but we've still seen a few of them getting pinged for it so far today, and I'm sure we'll see a few more before the day is done. That might have been a touch there between Mangan and Conner Garlick, who drifts out wide perhaps as a result, but that gives him the inside line for the Goddard's hairpin. This is the battle for 5th place that is still ongoing, and right behind them Matt Shaw, who will be disappointed, I'm sure, to have dropped down from 3rd to 7th by the completion of lap 1. So, across the line we go, an eventful opening lap of racing then. The lead held by Mckenzie Douglass. Nick White is 2nd, 3rd is Luke Garlick, 4th Ben McKenna, and still the fight for 5th rages on, with Conner Garlick defending from Mangan into Redgate Corner. That defensive line on the way in means he runs a bit wide on the exit curve on the way out, and Harry Mangan carries perhaps a mile an hour or so's extra momentum down the hill. Tries now to convert that into a move into the old hairpin. The car's bottoming out there as they go through that big compression through the quick left-hander. But they all, in the end, stay in the same order, up through the kink at Starkey's, then the left-hand sweeper at Schwantz, before hitting the brakes to get into McLean's corner, where we saw Ben McKenna sort of trigger that entertaining bit of scrapping between these drivers a lap ago. This time around they stay single file, and Matt Shaw looking to try and put the pressure now on Harry Mangan, who he did out-qualify. Remember, Mangan started 8th and is up into 6th, so a couple of places gained from him. Very few drivers, in fact only one driver completed lap 1 in the position from where they started, that being Conner Garlick in 5th place. Everybody else either gained or lost positions in the opening couple of miles of racing. That was Mangan over the curb and maybe clipping the tyre stack. Does that 44 car have any damage on the left-hand side? Doesn't look like it. It's certainly not slowed him down if there is, because he's challenging Conner Garlick into the Melbourne hairpin. That leaves the door open nearly for Matt Shaw, who tries to get to the inside. Matt has perhaps been guilty of getting stuck in a little bit too hard earlier on this season. He's learning with every race that he does in this championship, though. As I said, he and Nick White both graduating from the academy last year. And Matt Shaw, I think, maybe showing a bit of that maturity now and the experience that he's picked up this year. Backed out of that sort of 50-50 move, realising it's only race 1 of 3 in the weekend. Damage now can affect the rest of your performance over the other 2 races. So crucial to try and finish this race, even though I'm sure the frustration is there, sort of fueling him into trying to make something happen. Fastest lap of the race, Mckenzie Douglass, unsurprisingly, since he's now 1.1 seconds clear of Nick White, who leads that 3-way fight for second place. White, Luke Garlick and Ben McKenna. As I said, it's Mckenzie Douglass who leads the points, but it was Luke and Conner Garlick who shared the wins last time out at Silverstone. And that meant that they did close in quite nicely in the championship standings. It's 2 wins apiece so far for Douglass and Conner Garlick. Luke Garlick gaining just the 1, which was that victory in the first race at Silverstone last time out. They are the only 3 drivers to have won races so far this season, both overall and within the AM category. Look to me, though, that like Nick White was starting to slowly come back at Douglass there. Matt Shaw certainly coming back at Harry Mangan. Looks to the inside into the Fogarty S's, but not ultimately close enough to make the move, and then actually runs a bit wide on the way in. That scuppers his exit speed. But yeah, Nick White was faster by nearly 2/10 in the middle sector than the race leader Mckenzie Douglass, and in the first sector, a 1/4 of a tenth quicker, so next to nothing gained, but definitely made some gains in the middle sector. So Nick White, number 57, that's not 1.1 seconds anymore, of that I'm fairly certain. So we could have a race on our hands here. Don't assume that Mckenzie Douglass, just because he's a pro driver, is going to have this all his own way. Across the line they go. New fastest lap, Nick White, a 1:37.209. In the end, only 1/2 a tenth quicker than Douglass, but still, that is promising. Nick White perhaps has better race pace now that he's got some heat into the tyres, and he is going to be trying to use it, that is for sure. Down through the crane as they go. There is Nick White, the reigning GT Academy champion. Did battle with Matt Shaw all season long in that category, but having moved into the GT Championship, I think it's fair to say that Nick White has adapted more quickly to the extra power, to the slick racing tyres, to the various other changes that there are. The cars look identical to the GT Academy car, and in many ways they are. It's a G56 Ginetta chassis and body. Aerodynamically, they look very similar as well, but underneath, the electronics, the suspension, the tyres, the brakes, everything else beefed up. These are proper, thoroughbred racing machines, and they do take a bit of getting used to, but Nick White has done a good job of that so far, and at least on course for a podium here, and another class win. Can he challenge Mckenzie Douglass, though, and win the race outright? His fellow AM front-runner, Matt Shaw, down in 7th place still, stuck behind Harry Mangan, but I think he is quicker than Mangan. He's closed back in again after that mistake at the chicane a lap ago, and this time is much more clean through the chicane. Will that yield an opportunity into Melbourne? Mangan just sort of moves to the middle of the road in the braking zone there to cover, but look, outbrakes himself slightly, runs a bit wide. You can get away with it though at Melbourne, as long as you get back to that second apex, straighten the wheel up, get on the power, carry the speed up what is quite a steep hill. And I say that as someone who's walked up that hill several times before. It is a steep incline out of Melbourne to Goddard's, and crucial, therefore, that you get a good exit. More important, actually, to get a good exit than it is to be late on the brakes, really. Late on the brakes at Redgate, though, could again give Matt Shaw a chance to overtake, but he's just biding his time here. The frustration, apart from the fact that he's dropped down from 3rd on the grid to 7th, the other frustration is that he can see Conner Garlick getting away. So the longer he's stuck behind Harry Mangan, the less opportunity there will be for Matt Shaw to pick up any further places in this race. There, meanwhile, are the leaders. The lead gap went back out again. Did it? Yes, it did, by about 4/10 on the previous lap. So personal best lap for Mckenzie Douglass. Not quite as quick as White had been a lap ago. but did just creep up ever so slightly, that lead gap. Second to third came down by 3/10 though. This is Luke Garlick chasing after Nick White. Now, worth making the point, as I'm sure I have done at previous rounds, that you score points within your own class. So Luke Garlick is third overall, but second of the pros. That is what matters, really. He would score second place points if the checkered flag were to fly now. And even if he gets past Nick White, that won't gain him any more points, but of course it does give him a chance at maybe chasing down Mckenzie Douglass, the race leader, because on the previous lap he set a very similar lap time to the leader of the race. And here comes this entertaining battle for 6th place. And I do now think that Matt Shaw is starting to run out of that patience that I said he was displaying earlier on. Weaving around in the braking zone, trying to distract Harry Mangian. Again, does the same thing going into the Goddard's hairpin. Mangian had 2 4th place finishes within the pro class at Silverstone. There were only 4 pro drivers entered at Silverstone. But looks a little bit closer to the pace now, doesn't he, really? I mean, he's only 1.5 seconds behind Conner Garlick, who is twice a race winner so far this season. Mckenzie Douglass 1.7 seconds clear of Nick White, and he's now stolen that fastest lap back, look, so a 37.1, so that is 3 or 4 really quick laps in a row for Mckenzie Douglass to build that lead out to closer to 2 seconds. White in second position, Luke Garlick still third, good exit from the old hairpin there by Matt Shaw, and is he going to try something up at McLean's, I wonder? We'll find out momentarily. There go Nick White and Luke Garlick, then McKenna, what's going on behind Conner Garlick, and still just Harry Mangian ahead, but Matt Shaw could not be any closer to car number 44. Peaks to the inside at Coppice. That's not really an overtaking opportunity, but look, it's had the effect of spooking Mangian. He missed the apex, he ran wide. Matt Shaw's going to have more speed off the corner, but he's on the wrong side of the road, really, heading for the Fogarty S's. Can he jink back to the inside? I'm not really sure that he can. He's got a little bit of an overlap. Not quite enough, though, to do anything with him on the entry. And now Matt Shaw sideways as he turns in offline, the dirty side of the road. He was trying to get the switchback and carry the speed down the hill, but just did not have the grip on that outside line. A little bit unsighted, maybe, as well. And in the end, Harry Mangian lives to fight another day in this battle for 6th place. But Matt Shaw definitely now starting to throw a little bit more at this. We are going to be almost exactly halfway through the race when they cross the line this time at the end of lap number 6. And Shaw a bit wide onto the grass this time. The stakes creeping in now for Matt Shaw. And again, that's another side of that F word, isn't it? Frustration. He just knows that if he could get past Harry Mangian, he would probably be able to get away from him, but he's not that much quicker than Harry that it's as simple as pulling up and passing. He's going to have to work for this. Here's the replay look of the moment at the chicane. You can see he's offline. That's the dirty side of the road, sort of jinks back across and very nearly loses control. Look at the right rear tyre there. You can really see the way it was sort of pulling away from the rim with the lateral G-forces. Spectacular super slow-mo shot. And quick hands from Matt Shaw to keep control of the car. And he's already back on terms with Mangian then. So, a couple of mistakes aside, he quite clearly is the quicker, isn't he? He's already been able to close back in at the start of the lap, 6/10 back as they round Coppice. He's about 0.6 of a Ginetta's length away from car number 44. What's he going to try this time through the chicane? He's not alongside, he's not forcing the defence, tries to, but Harry Mangian wasn't going to fall for that one, was he? And again, Shaw, look, he's just maybe getting a bit preoccupied with trying to distract Mangian, doing a bit too much work maybe, and forgetting the basics, isn't he? Just missing apexes, missing braking points. 10 out of 10 for effort and enthusiasm, but it's not, for the time being anyway, producing an overtaking opportunity. Glimpse there of the leaders as they turned towards the Goddard's hairpin. Leaders sort of matching each other. In fact, White fractionally quicker than Douglass on the previous lap, and then this time around he is fractionally slower, so the gap hovering around 1.7 seconds now. White does at least seem to be keeping Luke Garlick at arm's length, although Luke just did a personal best lap and was the fastest man on track last time around. Not the fastest lap of the race, but within a tenth of the fastest lap, in fact within half a tenth of the fastest lap. Quite a bit quicker than the cars ahead. So there is Luke Garlick, the black car with the Union flag on the roof, dropping down through the old hairpin and now starting to look a little bit more of a menace, isn't he, to Nick White, who has to choose his battles really here. Nick White wants a good result overall, of course he does, but he has got another fairly comfortable AM class victory in the bag here, you'd have to say. He's won 4 of the 5 races so far this season in the AM category. Matt Shaw winning the first round at Donington Park, but Nick White managing to win every race since then. within his class anyway. Yes, he wants to finish second overall and show his pace compared to the pros, but if Luke Garlick comes calling, might be the sensible thing really for Nick White to just let him go, settle in behind. You never know, Luke could be able to catch Mckenzie Douglass, and an opportunity may present itself further in the race for Nick White to capitalise on that. Lots of curb taken by Matt Shaw. Now that was good. That was inch perfect through there this time for Matt Shaw. I'm pretty sure he's going to try and have a go here into the Melbourne hairpin. Again, weaving around, trying to maybe force Mangian to outbrake himself, as he has done a few times down here, but frustratingly not on this occasion for Matt Shaw. Harry Mangian nails the apex, gets a good exit as well. We're going to see another little jink to the inside here from Matt. No, takes the widest line possible into the corner. You can see from that angle, actually, just how steep a drop it is through the middle of the turn, and that's what can yield that understeer on corner exit. And just as I was describing it, Harry Mangian was experiencing it, the car drifting wide over the grass, but he kept his foot in it. It's dry grass at the moment. We haven't had too much rain. I think it rained a bit in the week, but the track has dried out quite nicely, the grass as well. And plenty, well, not plenty of grip, but enough grip out on the dirt to keep your foot down and not really lose too much momentum. It's been a fascinating battle, this, though, hasn't it? Black and white warning flags now for, guess what, track limits for cars 33 and 63. 33 is Matt Shaw on your screen. 63 is Conner Garlick, just up the road from these two, both being warned about exceeding track limits. Now, that doesn't tell us which corner they've exceeded the track limits at. It's my understanding that it's the old hairpin and the chicane that they are particularly monitoring. So if drivers are running a bit too wide out of the old hairpin or taking a bit too much of the inside curb through the chicane, then that will get them in trouble with the track limits police. As of yet, just warnings, but if they do it again, then 5 seconds would be added onto their race time, which Matt Shaw can little afford. He's not really thinking about that now, though, is he? He just wants to try and make this move stick. You can see there, he does sort of rumble over those blue markings on the inside of the curb. They're not the sensors, but they're just big lumps of concrete that are designed to stop you cutting the corner. They're not really working though, are they? Because all of the drivers are using them. And Matt Shaw used it to good effect there to get the run down into the hairpin, forced another mistake out of Mangian, and this time it brings Matt Shaw completely alongside the number 44 car, but on the outside line into Goddard's. Can he now tee up the switchback? Even if he can, though, that only becomes the outside into Redgate corner. It's so frustrating, this, for Matt Shaw. He just cannot break through the defences of Harry Mangian. And he's not actually been able to get a great exit from Goddard's either. So as they drop down into Redgate corner, still it is Harry Mangian in 6th position. It is Matt Shaw in 7th position. And again, a bit like I was saying with Nick White versus Luke Garlick up the road, with this being a pro versus an am, different races being run here, really. And as much as Matt Shaw quite clearly wants to get the job done and move ahead of Harry, second place in the class would be his as it stands. It is Peter Mangian, by the way, who sits third at the moment in the am class, ahead of Callum Noble and Gracie Mitchell. Two drivers making their debuts in the championship, bringing up the rear at the moment. Those three were quite close together earlier on, but they've sort of separated themselves now, so this remains the best battle on track, and Matt Shaw just can't find a way through. He's tried everything now, though, you feel, hasn't he? He's tried it at the chicane, he's tried it through both hairpins. That's not really worked. The only place I've not seen him try to get to the inside is at Redgate, but he's not really getting off the final corner well enough for that. Running out of time now as well. Only 4 minutes remaining in the race, and Shaw again a bit sideways into that chicane. The back of the car seems a little bit skittish, doesn't it? Maybe slightly stiffer rear suspension on the number 33 car, which will make the car pointier, help that turn in, but perhaps they've gone a bit too far. Maybe some adjustments to be made for tomorrow. Mckenzie Douglass, meanwhile, we haven't seen a lot of since the start of the race. He's been putting in a very measured performance here. That last lap was a 1:37.1, which was within a tenth of a second of his fastest lap of the race, which is the fastest lap. In fairness, though, Nick White was only a couple of hundredths slower, so Nick White's long-run pace is pretty impressive. Luke Garlick as well. In fact, all three of them lapped within a couple of hundredths of each other that time. Over the course of the race, as you can quite clearly see, Douglass has been able to gap these two, but not able to take huge chunks of time out of them. Nick White, though, is among the latest to find themselves getting very close to the track limits naughty step. He's been warned about them, and so has Ben McKenna in 4th place. So that's 4 drivers by my reckoning now who are being warned about track limits. And we've just had a 5 seconds note on the bottom of the timing screen. It doesn't tell us who those 5 seconds are going for. We'll get to that in a moment, though, because Matt Shaw is once more hounding the back of Harry Mangin's car as they round the right-hander at McLean's. Time penalty, car 63, Conner Garlick. So it's Conner Garlick getting the 5-second penalty. And that is the brother of Luke Garlick. There is Luke in third, but Conner Garlick in 5th position. I don't actually think that will matter, though, because he's 6.6 seconds ahead of that Harry Mangin and Matt Shaw battle, so 5 seconds wouldn't actually drop him behind them. Luke Garlick all over Nick White for 2nd place, though, as they drop downhill into the Melbourne hairpin. Now, earlier on in the race, I speculated that Nick White might not put up too much of a defence against Luke Garlick, but the closer you get to the end of the race, the more you start to think, well, I might as well defend it now. They will have 2 more laps to go at the end of this one. And I somehow don't see Nick White waving the white flag here. I think he's going to try and keep Luke Garlick at bay if he can. They've got a bit of a gap back to McKenna in 4th. The only thing, I guess, that Nick has to be a bit mindful of is that he is being warned about track limits. If he starts getting really defensive, he could start making mistakes and running beyond track limits again. So that will be at the back of his mind, maybe. Here comes the Mangin and Shaw squabble. Matt going to try and throw it up the inside. Visibly later on the brakes, isn't he? But doesn't try to get to the inside, instead focuses on the exit, gets a good exit. Can he nip to the inside through Hollywood? No, not quite. If you can get your nose in that gap before the driver ahead closes the door, that does usually give you a bit of an advantage down the hill, but well, within a few inches, maybe a foot of being able to do that was Matt Shaw, but ultimately just comes up short. Head up through Starkey's corner again then, through Schwantz towards the right-handers at McLean and Coppice. And Harry Mangin with Matt Shaw all over him as they round the right-hander. Over the top of the hill they go, into the blind right-hander at Coppice. And a good exit, again, vital here. If Matt Shaw's going to try and do anything, that it was not a good exit from Matt Shaw. He got the curb on the inside, and that led to a chunk of oversteer on corner exit. And you can see the result. He's dropped right back. Luke Garlick hasn't dropped back, though. He's all over Nick White. Down into Melbourne. Nick White late on the brakes. Too late on the brakes. And here comes Luke Garlick. He's up the inside line. That's the outside for the Melbourne hairpin, though. And as I've said, Nick White is going to stand his ground here, I think, as he's perfectly entitled to, in fairness. Just because they're in different classes, he is under no obligation to make this easy for Luke Garlick. And he is not making it easy for Luke Garlick, who remains behind as they exit the final turn. Time penalty has now been given to Matt Shaw, by the way. So Matt Shaw and Conner Garlick, who were the first 2 to be warned about track limits, the first 2 to be penalised. As we head on to the last lap, will they be the last 2? We'll have to wait and see. Luke Garlick has 1 more lap of the Donington Park Grand Prix circuit to try and get past Nick White. He's had a good exit from Redgate, but Nick White positioning the car cleverly there, just filling the road as much as he can. Is Luke prepared to take the risk into the old hairpin? You can see the tyre smoke there coming from the right front corner of Nick White's car as he bottomed out through the compression. But Luke Garlick can't find a way past, running out of opportunities now. McLean's is an opportunity, but I don't think he's quite close enough, so that really means we're looking at the final couple of corners. How many races down the years have been decided in the final couple of corners here at Donington Park, particularly on the Grand Prix circuit? This might not be for the race win, but it is for 2nd position, and what would be a season best overall result for Nick White. Of course, his 5th AM Class victory should be a certainty, barring disaster here. But can he hold on to 2nd place overall? Down the hill we go then, into the Fogarty S's. Luke Garlick, interestingly, dropping back over the second half of this lap. And I don't think he's going to be close enough to attack into Melbourne this time. It's the first lap in a while that Nick White hasn't been hugging the white line on the left-hand side of shot. He takes a relatively normal line into the Melbourne hairpin, gets a good exit, better than Garlick, I would say, and that should now be enough for Nick White to claim the AM Class victory. But for the overall race victory, it is going to be Mckenzie Douglass, who comes off the final corner, sees the checkered flag and claims the victory here at Donington Park for Fox Motorsport. Mckenzie Douglass, that is his 3rd victory of the season, the first driver to reach 3 wins, and that certainly sets his stall out as one of the favourites over this weekend to score well in the points. Nick White 2nd, wins the AM Class after a spirited defence there against Luke Garlick. Then McKenna 4th, Conner Garlick 5th, and he does hang on to that 5th place despite the 5-second penalty. Harry Mangin 6th, Matt Shaw 7th, and likewise, I'm pretty sure he was more than 5 seconds clear of Jack Manchester. Yes, he was, even with the 5 seconds applied. Matt Shaw beats Manchester for 7th by 2.1 seconds. We then wait for Peter Mangin, Callum Noble and Gracie Mitchell to get to the line, but they were some way back in the end. Mckenzie Douglass, though, won by 4.7 seconds in the end as Nick White started to defend from Luke Garlick in the closing stages. It really allowed Douglass to stretch his legs, And what had started as a very measured drive became, in the end, a pretty easy race victory for Mckenzie, who, with that third win of the season, will extend his points advantage now, because remember, it was Luke Garlick second in the points, while Luke finished second in the race. You get 35 points for winning a race, you get a bonus for the fastest lap, which went to Mckenzie Douglass, and you also get a bonus for pole position. Now, that's not pole position overall, that's pole position within your class. So although Nick White here has claimed maximum points within the AM class for a win, a fastest lap and a pole, so too does Mckenzie Douglass. Even though he started second on the grid, he was the highest placed of the pro drivers on that grid, if that made sense. So good points scored for Douglass and Nick White, and a second place finish for Nick White. A very, very good result overall as well. Douglass the winner, Fox Motorsport victorious, Raceway Motorsport second, but winner in the AM class for Nick White, with Luke Garlick for Xentek third. Ben McKenna was next, ahead of Conner Garlick and Harry Mangion, who fended off Matt Shaw, who will be ruining that poor run through the first corner. He ends up seventh, but second of the AMs. Jack Manchester comes home in eighth, with Peter Mangion, Callum Noble and Gracie Mitchell completing the runners. So Mckenzie Douglass now sets his eyes towards tomorrow's races. Two more races to come for the Ginetta GT Championship. And Mckenzie Douglass surely goes into tomorrow, like I said, as the favourite to try and claim maybe a couple more race victories. We've had one triple header so far this weekend, which came at Donington Park. We didn't quite get the hat-trick of wins, though, because it was 2 wins and a third place in the end that weekend for Mckenzie Douglass, with Conner Garlick claiming the victory in race number 3, and then of course Silverstone last time we had 2 different winners as well across the 2 races, so we haven't yet this season had complete dominance by one driver over a race weekend. Perhaps a bit too early to be speculating about that here, but the pace that Mckenzie Douglass showed in that race, the racecraft as well in the early stages to get the lead, would suggest that he would have a chance of doing that. He won't probably thank me for speculating too much on that, but he's in good form, that's for sure. And Mckenzie will be eyeing up some more silverware over the rest of the weekend. Let's take a look, shall we then, at the highlights of the first race of the weekend here at Donington Park, which saw Nick White start from pole position, but in the end it was Mckenzie Douglass who got the better of him in the opening exchanges. White led through the first corner whilst they were 3 wide behind, and his fellow AM front-runner Matt Shaw got sandwiched in the middle. Good run though round the outside, out of Redgate corner on turn 1. Saw Mckenzie Douglass grab the advantage down the hill, and he never really looked back. Nick White stuck with him in the early laps, actually briefly held the fastest lap of the race, but ultimately Mckenzie Douglass was able to stretch his legs. Ben McKenna had been behind both of the Garlicks early on. He got past Conner, who was then assaulted by Harry Mangion down at the Melbourne hairpin. He fended Harry off, but that meant that Conner was never really able to challenge the runners ahead. Big battle in the race was Matt Shaw trying to find a way past the aforementioned Harry Mangion. There were a few squirrely moments for the driver of car number 33 through the chicane, which perhaps led in the end to that 5 seconds track limits penalty. Nick White had to get his defending boots on in the closing stages to try and keep Luke Garlick behind. The AM class victory was already in the bag for Nick White, but he wanted second place overall. Having lost the lead at the first corner, he did not want to lose any more places, and he didn't, because he defended well against Luke Garlick, who tried everything to get past him in the closing stages. It was, though, Mckenzie Douglass who came through to claim a 3rd victory of the season to extend his championship lead within the pro category, whilst another AM victory for Nick White achieved the same in the race 1 at Donington.